Hi, folks. My name is Bill Eaton, and I'm the chair of the Department of Mental Health at the Bloomberg School of Public Health, and I want to welcome you to the installation of Vitsa Toll as the Dr. Ali and Rose Kawi Professor in the Department of Mental Health. And I want to welcome Provost of the University, John Bagger, who is here, and Dean of the Bloomberg School of Public Health, Michael Clegg, and Dr. Vitsa Toll and his wife, Liv Jensen, and her parents who have come from, or visiting from Denmark. That's great. And also Derek Siloff, who's here from Australia, is an international scholar in the field of global mental health. And I want to welcome the fellows of the Hubert Humphrey program who are visiting with us, and the students and fellows and staff and faculty of the Department of Mental Health, also including student Remington Nevin, who is the Dr. Ali and Rose Kawi Scholar. The first scholar is here today. And finally, it's my pleasure to welcome Pamela Kawi and friends of the Kawi family who are here. We have 4 reasons to celebrate today. The first is that the Department of Mental Health is 50 years old this year, so we're celebrating our 50th year. We were conceived, if you'll pardon the metaphor, by Adolph Meyer and William Henry Welch and Clifford Beers 100 years ago. And but the birth mother, pardon the metaphor, was Paul Lemkow. This is in the 30s and 40s and 50s, and he brought us to, his idea was that mental hygiene should be central to mental health and public health, and we became a department under his leadership 50 years ago. And we are still the only department of mental health in a school of public health in the world, although that may change soon as the field evolves. So that's the first reason. The second reason to celebrate is that today is World Mental Health Day, October 10th, 2012. As it happens, this is the 20th anniversary of World Mental Health Day. It was conceived by Richard Hunter and the World Federation for Mental Health 20 years ago in 1992. And there is, everyone knows, a surge of interest in global mental health. This is shown by the recent articles in The Lancet in 2007 and later follow-ups, and declarations by the World Health Organization. And we hope there are plans for a special session of the UN General Assembly on mental health. We'll see whether that comes to fruition in the near future. So that's another reason to celebrate. A third reason is the career of Dr. Ali Kawi and the gift of his family to the School of Public Health in establishing this professorship. The funds from the endowment freed the Department of Mental Health a little bit to recruit all over the world and for a scholar in global mental health, and we were able to recruit the best young person on the planet, Vitsa Toll, no exaggeration. And Dr. Kawi is not here, but I hope he would recognize the choice of conception and birth metaphor, because his dissertation was one of the earliest assessments of the concept of the continuum of reproductive casualty. This was back in 1956. It's almost unbelievable he was able to apply that to a beautiful case control study, which he elegantly conducted and described, and he applied that to the concept of learning disorders in children. So this is a continuation of the same theme that we have today. And the fourth reason to celebrate is the installation of Vitsa Toll as the Dr. Ali and Rose Kawi Professor. And I'll tell you more about Dr. Toll shortly, but Dean Clegg is going to talk to us a little bit now.
Thank you, Bill. So as Dean of the Bloomberg School, it's a real pleasure to be here today to participate in the installation of Dr. Vitsa Toll as the inaugural recipient of the Dr. Ali and Rose Kawi Professorship in Mental Health. And we have many reasons to celebrate, as Bill said. We're sorry that Dr. Kawi and Mrs. Kawi can't be here, but we know that they're here in spirit. I was happy that they were able to be here when we celebrated the scholarship last year. And I'll just ask the speakers, because they're not able to be here, we're videotaping this. So in order to make sure that you're on camera, we're going to ask everybody to stay behind the podium, even though you may have this urge to go out and connect with the audience. So the dedication of an endowed professorship is a really wonderful a wonderful moment in the life of an institution. It allows us to recognize the generosity of our friends as well as the accomplishments of our individual faculty. Private philanthropy is what makes such opportunities possible, and we are very thankful to the children of Dr. Ali and Rose Kawi, with special recognition to Pamela Kawi, who joins us today for establishing this professorship. Of all the gifts that a university receives, few make a more profound or lasting difference than the gift of an endowed professorship. The practice of endowing professorships is far older than Johns Hopkins. It began in England nearly 5 centuries ago when Margaret, Countess of Richmond, who happened to be the mother of King Henry VII, the good Henry, created the first endowed chairs in divinity at the universities of Oxford and Cambridge. A few years later, in 1546, Henry VII established Regius professorships at both universities. And those of us who know the history of Hopkins know that the School of Medicine was founded by 4 great physicians, the Big Four. It was William Henry Welch, who was the founding dean and later came here and founded the School of Public Health, and then 3 physicians, one of whom was the great internist and pediatrician Sir William Osler. And Osler was recruited away from Hopkins right after the turn of the century, around 1911 or so, to Oxford because of this Regius professorship. The resources it provided and the prestige attracted him from Baltimore to Oxford. So appointment to an endowed chair has been a coveted honor for distinguished faculty ever since those first professorships were created 5 years ago. We're proud that Johns Hopkins University now boasts more than 384 named professorships. The earliest of our professorships was endowed in 1889, only 13 years after the university was founded. Let me turn pages. Through the generosity of Baltimore philanthropist Carolyn Donovan, the Carolyn Donovan Professorship in English Literature. Today we're honoring Dr. Wietse Tol, whose international work concerns the health of populations exposed to severe adversity in low and middle income countries. His research, both quantitative, epidemiology, prevalence studies, both quantitative and qualitative, has included an assessment of the mental health consequences of torture and the evaluation of a multidisciplinary treatment program for torture survivors in Nepal, as well as randomized controlled trials of a school-based intervention for children affected by armed conflicts in Burundi, Indonesia, and Sri Lanka. Dr. Tol has led a number of reviews of effective practices for the World Health Organization and coordinated the setting of consensus-based research priorities in this field. I want to extend my sincere congratulations to Wietse on this wonderful occasion. Wietse. On behalf of the entire university, I want to thank the Kawi family who have made this day possible. It gives me great pleasure and pride to present the Dr. Ali and Rose Kawi Professorship to the Johns Hopkins University. At this time, I invite Provost John Bagger to accept the professorship. John.
Thank you. Dean Clegg and distinguished guests, on behalf of the Johns Hopkins University, it is with great pleasure that I accept the Dr. Ali and Rose Kawi Professorship in Mental Health to be held in the Department of Mental Health at the Bloomberg School of Public Health. Daniel Coit Gilman, the first president of Johns Hopkins, asked this question in his inaugural address: what are we aiming at? And then he answered, the encouragement of research and the advancement of individual scholars who by their excellence will advance the sciences they pursue and the society where they dwell. Then and now, Endowed professorships are vital to our mission of teaching, scholarship, and service. The women and men who hold endowed professorships at Johns Hopkins conduct some of the most significant and groundbreaking research that we do. And they bring prestige to the university in an especially powerful and visible way. Endowments, such as the one that supports this chair, make it possible to recruit and retain our most dedicated and talented faculty. These faculty attract the very best students who themselves come to Johns Hopkins to work with the acknowledged leaders in their fields. Their ability to advance research and patient care comes in no small part due to the reliable support that an endowed chair provides. Dr. Vitsa Toll is an outstanding faculty member who is richly deserving of such recognition. His achievements in the science and practice of mental health in low and middle income countries are precisely what an endowed professorship is meant to support. So on behalf of the university, I would like to thank the Kawi family who have selected their father's alma mater to hold this professorship in honor of their parents. And I'm especially happy today that Pamela Kawi can be with us on this very special occasion. So we at Johns Hopkins give you our solemn pledge that the Kawi professorship will be preserved and maintained now and in the future for the pursuit of knowledge and for the benefit of all humanity. So I offer my warmest congratulations to Dr. Vitsa Toll and to the inaugural recipient of the Dr. Alian Rose Kawi Professorship in Mental Health and to his family. Congratulations.
Thank you, John. Now it's my privilege and honor to introduce the representative of the Kawi family and one of our honored guests here, Pam Kawi. After graduating from Hobart and William Smith Colleges in Geneva, New York, Pamela Lynn Kawi earned her journalism credentials at NBC News. She rose from intern to network producer at age 24 and soon after began contributing as an on-air reporter. She was assigned to breaking news stories in the field as well as hallmark broadcasts for the Today Show and Weekend, where she seemed to have profiled everybody, but I'll just list a few. Leaders, politicians, executives such as Governor Jerry Brown, Clive Davis, Shelley Lazarus, Charles Koppelman, and Chris Blackwell. As the key entertainment producer for the Today Show and Weekend, Ms. Kawi conducted interviews with such luminaries as John Bon Jovi, Harry Connick Jr., Carly Simon, Dolly Parton, Garth Brooks, David Crosby, Peter Max, and Matthew Broderick, among many, many other popular entertainers. The Oklahoma City bombing, Florida's Hurricane Andrew, and the events of 9/11 are but a few of the tragedies that Pamela covered, working with camera crews, editors, and anchors to offer personal views into the lives of those who were affected. She also covered the Citadel's all-male policy, the anniversary of the civil rights movement, called Freedom Summer, inmates on death row, abortion doctors under duress, juveniles in boot camp, and Habitat for Humanity. Pamela was associate producer for the award-winning documentary Grateful Dog, featuring Jerry Garcia and David Grisman. Ms. Kawi resides in New York. She is a board member of Success Through the Arts Foundation in Los Angeles and the Deadline Club, the New York chapter of the Society of Professional Journalists. So, Pamela Kawi.
Thank you, Mike, and thank you, Bill, Ricky, and Donna, for orchestrating such a wonderful afternoon. My father regrets that he couldn't be here. He is recovering from spine surgery and improving every day. This is a very special day for my family. My father, as many of you know, will be 88 years old this year, and he's still fully dedicated to his teaching at Downstate University and to his private practice. It was Johns Hopkins University that provided him with the foundation for his life's work, and life passion. He's since devoted himself to his patients and students with unwavering commitment, and I deeply admire him for that. And and for having the self-regulation to resist prescribing me Ritalin when I was a child. I've always known that my father's work, which has been called The Impossible Profession by J. Malcolm, was significant. And growing up, I learned a few things about Sigmund Freud. He once said, "Words have a magical power. They can bring either the greatest happiness or deepest despair. They can transfer knowledge from teacher to student. Words are capable of arousing the strongest emotions and prompting all men's actions." The Department of Mental Health has undergone significant change over the last 50 years since the eminent leader of mental health, Paul Lemkow, directed the program. My father says his book, Mental Hygiene and Mental Health, was like the Bible of mental health in those days. Dr. Lemkow had less than a handful of faculty and students for his research projects. And look at mental health at Johns Hopkins today. It's a full-fledged department making a significant impact around the world, and this has happened under the leadership of Bill Eaton. The professorship and scholarship in my parents' name will provide another step forward in sustaining the leadership position of the Department of Mental Health. I have a few messages from my father that he asked I deliver. The first is to Ricky and Donna, who were so gracious and sensitive and stood by his side during his entire visit here. And anytime he entertains the thought of visiting Hopkins, he thinks of them by his side. Bill Eaton was the most gracious host, and he indulged my father in his memories and fantasies of Hopkins and the people who were there 50 years earlier. Bill introduced him to the people and realities of today, and my father is very thankful to Bill for skillfully accomplishing that and for evoking the wonderfully rich memories and connections to his past here. Dean Clagg, without him, the department certainly could not have reached this point. My father admires the dean for his capacity to listen and to show empathy and support with his ideas, and for that my father is very grateful. Dr. Toll, my father felt that his experience with Johns Hopkins, the institution, the people, the science, and humanity have all shaped his rich experience, and it's a part of his character and identity. He enjoyed it thoroughly and hopes that you will find the same rich experience that he did. Congratulations. George Weinberg writes about the most important attributes of a therapist in his book, The Heart of Psychotherapy. The foundation of his talent is in the ability to feel and a readiness to act. He must have intelligence, he must have courage, and he must have the strength to do what seems right without compromise. And that's my father. The impact of his work extends well beyond his own patients. He's passed his knowledge on to generations of doctors and students, and his influence has been immeasurable. I'm very proud of my parents, and the professorship and scholarship will enhance the groundbreaking work of the Department of Mental Health and remain an enduring legacy of two people who made a difference, each in their own way, one person at a time. Thank you.
Thanks, Pamela, for the communications from your dad, and I'm glad he is getting better every day. That's great. Now I'm going to introduce Dr. Toll. We've already heard a lot about him, so this is sort of a big build-up. Sorry for that. Dr. Wietse Toll obtained a PhD in 2009 from Vrije University in Amsterdam with a specialty in public mental health, and it was awarded with the rare in Amsterdam designation of cum laude. He spent 2 years then as a postdoctoral associate at Yale University, specializing in global mental health. He's published more than, even at this stage of his career, more than 30 peer-reviewed articles, including in journals such as JAMA and The Lancet. Last year, he was awarded the Hyman Bela Danieli Young Professional Award from the International Society for Traumatic Stress Studies. His work, as has been mentioned, focuses on vulnerable children around the world. And of course, it fits into the Department of Mental Health and into the themes for today exquisitely. The focus on children ties into the research of Dr. Kawi, also into the life course orientation of the Department of Mental Health, which has a particular focus these days on children in schools. Alleviating emotional disorders in children has a large payoff because it improves their health and functioning for the remainder of their lives. And focusing on vulnerable populations, such as those who are victims of war or a genocide or forced relocation or natural disaster, puts the emphasis where the greatest need is and where the greatest good can be achieved. So that this focus of Witzetoll is proof of his moral as well as his scientific direction. Anyway, Witze, can you talk to us for a little bit, please?
Thank you for the build-up, Bill. No pressure. Provost Bagger, Dean Clegg, Dr. Eaton, Dr. and Mrs. Kawi, and members of the Kawi family, and honored guests. It's an enormous honor to accept the Dr. Ali and Rose Kawi Professorship in Global Mental Health. I'm profoundly grateful to the Kawi family and the Department of Mental Health for providing this unique opportunity. It's amazing to be able to stand here and having been given this chance to contribute to the mission of this renowned university and school. Being from the Netherlands, however, I should probably be careful in the coming period. In global mental health, we believe that the cultural perspectives on illness are important. As a Calvinist, and certainly in the eastern part of the country where I grew up, we were taught that you should not stick your head too far above the cornfield, for you may lose it. Perhaps this is why, in addition to the proven public health benefit, of course, Dr. Eaton suggested that I should wear a helmet on my bicycle on the way to work. But in all seriousness, and that's something also that Calvinists are well known for, it's with a great sense of humility that I join a widely acclaimed institute with a truly stellar faculty. In my short period at the department, I have been awed by the many superb research projects that are ongoing and the vigor with which faculty and students are addressing real-world problems and doing that through the best that science has to offer. Also, the wonderful support they get from staff while doing that. I'm looking forward greatly to making an academic home among these dedicated professionals who have led the way in developing the field of public mental health. And I believe that field of public mental health is of great promise for the field of global mental health. The field of global mental health is a relatively new field of science and practice. Key characteristics of it are its real-world pragmatism, its emphasis on addressing the enormous gap between the need for treatment and the actually available services, its focus on a true exchange between different parts of the world of knowledge, rather than a rather one-way transfer of knowledge from the north to the south. And also, and this is my particular personal interest, focus on identifying the social determinants of mental health, including poverty and violence and social marginalization. In that sense, the key characteristics of this new field are actually not so new to the Department of Mental Health. These have been guiding principles for the department for a long time indeed. And I think that is a key reason why the department is currently in a place where they can take a unique leadership position in leading the way again and furthering the field of global mental health. I must admit that I didn't start my work from the perspective of public mental health. I'd like to say and joke with students that actually I fell from the top of the public health pyramid right down to the base of the pyramid. My first job abroad as someone trained in clinical and health psychology was in a specialized center for victims of torture and in Nepal. And as a somewhat reluctant researcher who had just moved from a clinical position, I helped evaluate services for a particularly vulnerable group of people, many of whom had high levels of post-traumatic stress disorder, of depression, and of medically unexplained physical symptoms. And although I think the delivery of specialized services for these disorders is certainly a very important priority, I could not escape the feeling there that we could do a lot for the improvement of the mental health of populations in the conflict-affected setting of Nepal if we would move out of the clinic and into the community. An example, I remember doing an evaluation of a program for conflict-affected children in an orphanage in Western Nepal. I was doing an interview with an 11-year-old boy. And at the end of the interview, which I think is good practice, I asked him if there was something that he wanted to ask me, if there was something that we needed to talk about that we didn't discuss earlier. And rather than asking me a question, he told me, well, I hope that in the country where you are from, you will never have to experience conflict. That triumph of interpersonal concern for me, rather than talk about his own personal suffering, to me was a very clear sign of resilience. And since then, I have been very interested in how interventions can build on such type of protective factors to prevent mental disorders in larger groups of people. For example, by strengthening socially supportive relationships, by strengthening positive parenting and coping methods in families, in communities, in schools. Following Dr. Kawi's footsteps, quite literally there, I feel that the best place to do this is by starting as early as possible. In East Timor at the moment, I am working as part of a team that's preparing research on pregnant mothers so that we can see how we can support healthy life from the very beginnings. This is a broad agenda, I admit. And I think a challenge at Hopkins will be to remain focused, because there are so many opportunities to collaborate with world experts on such an enormous range of fantastic and well-needed topics and areas of research and practice. Remind me if I am led astray. I'd like to thank personally some people who have made it possible for me to be speaking with you today. First, my wife, Liupommer Jensen, for her unwavering support while walking this path. From shouting slogans together on World Mental Health Day exactly 3 years ago in Kathmandu, to showing what resilience actually looks like in real life, and for working with me through the transitions that have led us here. My parents and brothers in the Netherlands and Canada, my new family in Denmark, some of whom are here today, my colleagues, Dr. Jordans and Dr. Kort, for their friendship and inspiration, Dr. de Jong, Komproe and Reis, and colleagues at HealthNet TPO in the Netherlands, Dr. Eaton and Dr. Bass for putting their trust in me, together with colleagues at the department. Dr. Silo for the opportunity to work in East Timor. And I would like to thank everyone in the places where we have worked for opening up their worlds to me, for participating in research, and sharing their experiences of strength and suffering despite the very busy schedules. If you indulge me, I would like to end with another Dutch habit, which is thanking people in advance for services they have not actually delivered yet. Colleagues, I will be knocking on your doors in the coming days, and I cannot thank you in advance enough. Bij voorbaat hartelijk dank. Thank you.
Thank you, Wietse. So at the beginning, Bill said we had many things to celebrate today. One was that it's World Mental Health Day, and it's fortuitous that we're doing this installation on that day where we talk about the problems that affect people in terms of mental health around the globe. The second, you mentioned Dr. Silov is here from Australia and gave a symposium at noon, which was really, for me, a really educational experience and moving experience. And I want to thank you for taking the time to be with us today. You said that Dr. Toll, this chair allowed us to get the best young person in the world here. Now, I know when you said that, you meant who's not already here, right? That's exactly right. Right, Bill? Yeah, good, good. Because I want you to have a good evening, at dinner and whatnot today. And but we just saw some evidence of why you were selected for this honor. It's really impressive, the work that you've done so far, and we look forward to partnering with you as a school community to advance your career in the work that you're doing. So we're happy that you're here. And lastly, it's a day where we are uniting the name of our school with the Kawi family. So your father's legacy becomes our legacy, and that his name will be, and your mother's name will be with our school as long as we exist. So we thank you. We thank your friends. We thank everybody who made this day possible. And I invite everybody to go out to a reception where we can celebrate. So thank you for coming. So.